Hello, theologisters, sisters, and misters.
Welcome to the coven.
Just to reiterate, because I know that I said this a million times in the first episode, but I have not ever seen a ghost, claimed to have seen a ghost. And, I really am drawn to all of those like ghost hunter shows because I love trying to see if like I can debunk them in real time and like try to come up with like why it can't be possible. But yeah, I feel like out of all of the paranormal supernatural things, ghosts for me and like the afterlife and all of that and like what that means has always been like the one thing that I always kind of wish I could have a definitive answer for.
A lot of people want like definitive proof or answers for things after they die. And there's a couple things that can say, like, I can honestly say that some people do become ghosts. That doesn't mean that every single person does, however.
I mean, so like there are like the cinematic rules of like ghosts where it's like if you have unfinished business or something, you become a ghost.
I'd like to say that one, but I think it's more of if somebody disturbs your resting place.
So, but then like you hear about, like, oh, my dead grandmother, like she still lives in the house with us. Like I can feel her presence. Like I've heard that with.
Those ones are people want to like look after you. They're concerned.
Okay.
Like my father's father was around for quite some time because my father was very distraught about his passing. And so he was around for quite a while until semi-recently, I believe. He might still be around. I don't know. My father doesn't talk about it anymore. So I think that he's popped out. He could even be with my grandmother right now because she's not doing so hot. But
so,
all that aside,
I mean, like it brings up so many questions. Like, are
he
there rules?
Did various things in the household to make his presence known.
Right. So like I always cuz you hear like so many conflicting viewpoints of like ghosts and what ghosts are capable of. Like some say like the house that they died in, they like are forced to stay there, and then like others say like um they follow around like certain people or they're attached to objects. And it's just like I feel like there are so many conflicting viewpoints of like what a ghost or a spirit in this sense is capable of doing.
I don't believe that there's one set of rules. I think it depends independently on the ghost that you're talking about.
So in your experience then, like I know you have so many ghost stories.
This is true.
I really want to hear it.
Which one?
That's a great question. I guess like what about like your earliest?
My earliest ghost. The earliest one I remember seeing or feeling.
I guess the earliest one you saw.
Ooh, okay. The earliest one I saw. See, I have to think back to my childhood, which is obviously very
Or at least like
distant.
what you can like pull from like the top of your head.
The top of my head is the most recent one. Well, not the most recent one, but it's semi-recent. I was 20?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say 20.
So a couple years ago.
I was in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Big city for ghosts.
Yeah, I have heard that there's like tons of like apparently like haunted buildings and haunted tours of like
literally buildings have to say not haunted.
huh.
Like I've seen signs that say, "Hey, place for rent, not haunted." And I'm like, that makes me think immediately haunted.
Legally, we disclose that it's not haunted. Is there a legal procedure for hauntings?
I have no idea.
Now I'm just imagining like a ghost lawyer. Please
I
get
did
me
go on a
yeah. Please get me
tour.
back on track.
I did go on a haunted tour for those
Okay.
type of things, but I won't talk about the tour necessarily.
Okay.
Unless you drag me into that, in which case I will.
Possibly.
The ghost that I remember seeing and feeling,
Mm-hmm.
I was told about her the day before actually, like, you know, interacting with her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, my mother had a boyfriend at the time, and that boyfriend had a mother who was like, he was like, oh, she's a ghost. She, like, sometimes comes around to, like, you know, look after me or something. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was. I don't really know. I don't remember
Like
the
a
specifics.
comforting presence or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, she didn't do that.
Oh no.
She came to my room instead. I think that she was looking for him because she was looking in the direction that he was, but she was in the wrong room. So I
So
woke
you
up in the middle of the
physically
night.
saw her.
Oh, yeah. This terrified me because as an empath, which I'll explain empath soon, I'm not a very strong empath. Uh, my eyesight is that of what my current eyesight is. So any sort of ghost or spirit that I get to see,
Mm-hmm.
um, general rule of thumb is that I'll see them as I see normal things without my glasses, which I'm nearsighted.
Mm-hmm.
Just to put that into perspective, I can see about as far as I can touch.
So I guess the general disclaimers would be that it was in the middle of the night after you woke up and your eyesight is blurry.
But I
Okay.
could tell thoroughly that this was a ghost. Um,
So I guess like
so
what were
she was
what were the signs that you knew it was a ghost and not like a hallucination?
well. Firstly, I woke up, um, and I have like I always have a wall in my house that's got posters all over it. You helped me design the one in this house.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this one was the opposite side from my bed, so I could go look at it and I could work on my bed because I was always working from my bed. Um, and she was kind of staring off through my wall almost and kind of like slowly traversing. And my brain was just thinking, don't come near me, leave me alone, go away. But I didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went back to sleep because I was like, there's nothing you can do about a ghost. And I woke up again. I don't know how much later because I didn't check my phone or anything. And immediately lock eyes back on the same ghost. She's moved maybe a foot and is still slowly moving. I have a feeling she was moving back and forth along that wall a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't see her move back. I just saw her move towards the right hand side near where my ferret cage was.
Mm-hmm.
So I was
Your
just
poor
like, God
ferret.
damn it. I know, right? No, Mochi wasn't bothered.
Okay.
So then I went back to sleep again, woke up again. She was still there. And I was like, what the hell? Usually they go away by now.
Right.
I went to sleep again, and then I woke up again.
This is
And
the
she's,
fourth time.
yes, and she's near my bed.
Oh, fun.
And she's coming towards my bed. And I looked at her, and I didn't look her in the eyes, but I kind of like, you know how you look at somebody's face, but you don't look at their eyes?
Yeah.
I looked at her and I went, leave me alone. And then I went to sleep. Like, I started kind of half going to sleep. I woke up, looked at my like looked at my eyes. Wow. Looked at things around me. She's gone.
That is something I have heard that like if you tell a spirit that like they are not welcome or you don't want them in your space, like they'll usually leave unless if it's like I guess like a demon or something.
I think that she thought I was Wendy. Now, Wendy is this man's child.
Okay.
He has a daughter named Wendy. Now, Wendy was less than a year old.
Okay.
I'm trans, and at the time I was presenting as female
Mm-hmm.
and didn't like put enough thought into whether or not I was trans. I just knew I was LGBT.
Right.
And so at the time I presented as female and was completely okay with this. I think that what happened is she thought that I was Wendy, and so she came over to me.
Right.
And I'm not Wendy. So when I said leave me alone,
She was like, "Oh,
must have
sorry."
picked up on, oh, you're not my son's kid.
sorry, like I do these visitations.
I never saw her again. She might have gone to the other room, but I didn't see her again.
All right. So, what was like the aftermath of that? Like in the morning, did you tell anyone?
I can't recall if I told anyone. I might have told my mother. I tell
Mm.
her a lot of these things. Due to being uh, a better practiced, just a better practiced empath, and
Mm-hmm.
which in general, I tend to tell her a lot of things and ask for her advice on a lot.
Right.
So I should probably explain what an empath is before I get too far into it.
Yeah, because like so my understanding of an empath, and then you can correct me on like what you mean. Uh, because it's interesting that you bring that up because I identify as an emotional empath. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for me personally, from what I've learned, like psychology, that just means that I'm very attuned to other people's emotions in general. I'm just very affected. I have a hard time separating myself from other people. It's actually something I've been working on quite a bit recently. So
You're
that's what I've always known an empath to be.
you're right and wrong at the same time.
I feel like that a lot.
You're empathetic,
Okay.
not an empath,
All right.
which would mean that you have high empathy towards others and can feel what they're feeling when you enter a room or speak to them.
Yeah.
That's partial empath, but that's more empathetic than empath. You're not
Okay.
feeling.
Like it never extends to me personally for like anything outside of humans.
Yes, and an empath does extend past human.
So maybe that term has been used.
That term has been thrown around in psychology as
Yeah.
opposed to what people perceive as science fiction, quotes here,
Uh-huh.
um, which I wouldn't perceive magic as science at all.
It kind of like breaks those rules, which is why it
Yes.
wouldn't count.
Which is funny because I'm such a scientist kind of person, but I'm also a witch and
I guess
a
it's also
mild
just like
empath, but not an extreme empath like my mother because I'm still young. And she said, you'll develop slowly. And I was like, oh, cool. And she's like, I'm just glad that you embrace it rather than hide from it because when I was younger and your age, I hid from it all. And I was like, no, I've just accepted it as a part of my life. I'd be worried if it left.
another thing that I heard cuz like I like fall down the rabbit holes of like people on YouTube like telling their personal ghost stories and cuz I find it so fascinating. Especially YouTubers that I feel are like really genuine. Like I love hearing them recount their stories. And like so something that this person said is that your spiritual ego keeps you from being able to see beyond like what you're comfortable with, and it's about like being able to shed that ego and just be open. And that's apparently a very difficult thing to do, like easier said than done kind of thing. So obviously like my first thought for myself as to why I've never had a paranormal experience, if those experiences are real, is that I must have a very strong spiritual ego that keeps me from being open to these things.
Ego has a weird connotation to it as a word.
I think
So
that's
I'm
just like
not.
what it's been referred to. Like I know ego kind of makes it seem like that you have like a really high view of yourself. It's less referred to as that, and it's more so just like it's basically like an
Honestly,
obstacle.
it's more of a protection thing that your brain sets in place.
Okay.
So your brain will set in place that you're not allowed to go through with like interacting with these spirits and things because you're scared. It's
Right.
the unknown. You don't know what you're getting into.
Hmm.
And it's safer for you not to get into it, is what your brain is telling you. Now, I'm not saying it's unsafe or safe. I will not vouch for either side. It all depends on how you go about it. Now, I'm going to give you my definition of empath
Hmm.
because it's sitting here written in front of me, but also it's written here because I actually had to sit down and write down my notes. I write down notes. Look at me.
So well prepared.
um, so, the definition I have is that an empath will feel things more intensely than normal people.
Hmm.
Um, and they feed off of people's energies, both negative and positive.
Okay.
They're more sensitive about the presence of spirits and demons. My mother can walk into a room and feel people that have been there in the past, negative or positive spirits.
Uh-huh.
She has some good experiences, bad experiences, some energies she couldn't get rid of for a couple of days. One example of this is for empathy, or rather being an empath, but empathy as in the verb of being an empath.
Right.
Is she likes to go to cemeteries, and being in one of them for her is like being in a room with 1,000 people talking at once. She loves it anyway and enjoys spending time in the cemeteries, especially the old ones.
So like for her, or I guess for like empaths in general, it's when it's about like spirituality and less about the psychology, which is, the definition that I've always heard. It extends past obviously like human emotions of like tangible and the living and like who you're actually like around and surrounded with. And it extends to like energies that I guess linger or might not have a tangible person attached to them.
Yeah, it can be. For an example, and I won't go very deep into it, but a lot of my childhood issues, there was a lot of tension in one of the households that I lived in. And specifically, my bedroom has a lot of sadness tied into it, and my mother can't enter the room.
Interesting.
She already has depression. Walking into a room that has that strong of a sad feel to it, she can't walk in.
So, my first thought is, I guess, like what psychologically could be causing it. I mean, that's just where my brain goes. And I mean, like, as you mentioned earlier with this ghost that you saw, that you did not see or hear or, anything about this ghost until after you were told about it. And you
Yeah,
were
when I was
in.
told about her, she actually showed up. But that
Right.
happens with a lot of things. Like if I mention my goddess's name, she'll pop up after a couple of mentions.
Which I mean, like, makes sense, logically if you're
It's
saying,
like being
like,
summoned, but
right. But, like, then again, it's also, for me, like, you could say, like, sure, I'm summoning, but at the same time, it's like, or are you just, trying to, like, look for it, like, subconsciously?
oh
You
no,
know,
it's never an intentional summon.
well, that's why it's subconscious. I mean, nothing with your subconscious is intentional. That's the whole point.
Yes, but if I sit down and try and intentionally summon her, the chances of her showing up are pretty slim. She tends to just come and go as she pleases.
So, I guess, I mean, so like that's just like the one story that you had with like that one ghost that you saw. And I asked you what she like looked like to you. Like what does a ghost look
She.
like?
That depends on the ghost. Some ghosts are blue, some are white. I think there's other colors as well. I wouldn't say black. I feel like those are different. But I have seen blue and I have seen white. Oh, I do actually remember the blue ghost now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, go for it.
Could tell you more about that one because I didn't know anything about her. And I probably never will. But this woman was an older woman. I didn't get a look at her face because I don't like to look things in the face when I don't really know them and I'm kind of freaked out.
Okay.
Like the ghost experiences do kind of spook me.
I mean, I think
Even
it would
after
spook.
like interacting for all these years, I'm still spooked by it. This
I
isn't something
mean,
you just get used to.
it is like obviously like a very out of the ordinary thing, and it is something that I would assume catches
She's
you very
dead.
off guard. Yeah.
And I don't even know her. So
I guess it would be pretty freaky if you didn't know somebody and they just showed up in your house, ghost or otherwise.
yeah, just came up to your bed as you're sleeping and kind of looked at you and looked you over. Like, that's a little bit creepy.
It's like, I don't really care that you're glowing white right now, but like you're really in my personal space.
Yeah, basically. Like, the foot of my bed is far enough. Get out. So she had long hair. It was About the length that your hair used to be before you, chopped it.
Okay, yeah. So
So just a little
like,
bit past the shoulders.
yeah, okay.
Um, Less wavy though. It was pretty straight, but it was kind of like a soft wave to it.
Mm-hmm.
She had a more dressy outfit, which
Okay.
is I feel like it's common for ghosts to have very drapey kind of outfits.
It is like the iconography that I see.
Yeah, she didn't have like a solid drapey outfit. She had more of like a modern kind of, like a nice coat, but not like a coat, like the short coats that
Like a uh damn, what's the name? Like a camisole or a shawl?
kind of, but it wasn't really that. It was more like
Like a cardigan?
cardigan's pretty close,
All right, so we'll go a
but like
cardigan.
a stronger material.
Okay.
More like a denim coat
Maybe just
kind of
like a
deal, but
jacket.
not denim. Yeah. So she had one of those, what I assume would have been a nice top if it, was in color and she was alive.
Mm-hmm.
And then she had a really
Usually
nice skirt.
things look nicer when they're alive. Yeah.
How dare you? And then a really nice long skirt.
Okay.
So she was in modern clothing,
Okay.
which means she died during modern times, but
Right. Like you're not going to see like a ghost that died like 2 days ago in 2020 wearing a Victorian outfit.
unless they, maybe died in the Victorian outfit, then maybe
She died doing what she loved, cosplaying.
that's how I'm gonna die. In Boston doing something dumb while cosplaying.
So, okay. You saw this ghost 4 times in the middle of
In
the
a
night.
single night.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
middle of the night. So,
And then never again.
right. So, I mean, like, what to you convinced you that this was real and it wasn't just like imagination and like being half asleep?
Well, firstly, the fact that she showed up 4 times.
Okay.
that was a little intense.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly getting closer towards me was a little freaky.
Mm-hmm.
Um Even the fact that, if it was part of my imagination, the fact that she didn't look at me directly or come near me until the 4th time
Uh-huh.
kind of makes me go, okay, that sounds like a real ghost. They don't tend to just immediately approach you. They're not like that. They're more
Right. So it wasn't
roundabout.
like some kind of like night terror jump scare.
Yeah, no, if it was like that, I would have been like, that's not a real ghost.
Mm-hmm.
That would be some sort of other demonic entity, at which point I would have been like, why is it white? They're usually not white.
Right.
And then I would have been like, okay, that's just a nightmare. Go to sleep.
So, okay, that
um,
was this white ghost that you saw.
she had like this soft aura to her, like she wasn't trying to harm me, which is why I was able to continuously go back to sleep.
Was the aura like a visual thing or like a feeling?
No, it's a feeling.
Okay.
She had a feeling like she was just there to kind of like be there. Not that she was looking for something necessarily, although I found that she probably was later
Mm-hmm.
and that she thought I was somebody else, but that was after talking to my mother. But she
Well,
had this feel of like, I'm not here to harm you, I'm just here.
mm. So I guess in that case, so like this was like a nighttime thing. And like ghosts are usually associated with like, the dark of the night kind of thing. Cause I think like nighttime, resembles like indicates like the unknown, like in
From
darkness.
the times of 12 o'clock to 3 a.m. are usually the times where the rift between the spirit realms and Earth realm is thinner. So
And
it's easier for
why
ghosts to show up.
and why is that, do you think?
I have no idea.
So then my second question is like what about time zones? Like do ghosts adhere to time zones? Does
I assume they would, but that's only because
or
if
like
they're in that time zone with you, they're going to adhere to your time zone.
I mean like these are like the dumb little things that I think of just like okay, so the veil is thinnest from this time to this time, but like, is that, does that change based on where you are in the world? Or, is it the same time in China that it is on the west coast of America?
Considering she's not going to pop up in China at the same time that she's like, you know, 3 a.m. for me in Louisiana is not the same time in China, so she wouldn't have gone to China randomly.
Right.
Unless she did and didn't tell me or anything, which is fine. I don't care. Like, whatever.
It's just me and my ghost and like taking ghost JetBlue
Not even my
with my
ghost.
with my ghost passport.
Not even my ghost. Why are you here? Leave me alone.
Okay, so that was this ghost a few years back for you. So you also mentioned a blue ghost.
Yes, this one's actually a little bit more recent. No, actually further in the past because I was in high school.
Okay.
Were you around when I saw her? I think you might have just been starting to get a little bit too busy for me.
Mm.
So this is a blue ghost. I had a dream about her exactly. Now I have what are they called? Prophetic dreams.
Okay.
I haven't had one in quite a while. Actually, no, I think I had one last night. What am I talking about? But that's the first time in a while. So this one was of. My mother says this happens because I have a strong spiritual kind of soul.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true or not.
Whatever,
But
like whatever that means.
yeah, apparently I attract ghosts and spirits and things. That's fine. Whatever.
I mean, like
I've learned to live
maybe
with it.
I feel like ghosts would be more drawn to people that were open to seeing them.
And I'm quite open to seeing and speaking with them if they need to. However, I can't speak to them and they can't speak to me.
I mean, like,
So,
because, like, so obviously,
my mother they can, but with me, no.
I wouldn't attract ghosts because, like, I can't see them, so they would just be wasting their time.
Oh, I can't see them most of the time.
But I mean, like, like,
I feel them most of the time. I can't see them most of the time. These are the experiences where I've seen them.
right, which I feel like to me personally are more concrete. Like, because everybody gets an off feeling every now and then. Like, when you say, like, you feel them, like, what do you mean by that?
I mean that I feel a whole spirit, like a strong presence is
Like,
with me,
so you
and I can
feel
immediately
like,
tell it's supernatural and have to decide for myself if it's uh, malicious or not. And if it's a ghost, it's usually not. Usually, no, it's not malicious. So I can tell if it's a ghost or if it's something else, because something else would give off a much stronger, like a very intense feeling to it as opposed to a ghost.
so it feels like someone is, like, by you, next to you, like, in the room with you. Yeah, like,
Sometimes, if I were to describe something similar, it would be like if I came up behind you right now and I folded my arms and like were to lean over both of your shoulders and just press down.
interesting.
You get that feeling of like intense heaviness, and then you can slowly start to tell where in the room something is.
Like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around, like, what exactly, like,
Because you haven't really experienced
right.
it.
It's kind of like trying to,
I'd have to physically be in a room with you and like
mhm.
show you what I mean, and it would be a very strange experience for you because I'd be doing it as a person.
Right. So, but I mean, like, it's kind of like trying to describe, like, color to a blind person in a way. Like, it's a
Yeah.
sense that I don't have. So, like, I can say that I kind of get it, but, like, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like, I cannot imagine what that would be like. I mean, like, I feel like everyone every once in a while has that, like, someone's watching me, but I feel like that for me is just like general anxiety and paranoia.
Yeah, that's anxiety and paranoia. That's completely different.
Right. So, like, I trace all of these feelings back to what can I attribute to them psychologically. As someone who's had sleep paralysis, I can't tell you how many times I've heard stories of people being like, oh, I felt a presence sitting on my chest and I couldn't move and I couldn't breathe and someone was pinning me down. And I'm like, every time that I've had sleep paralysis, I never
That's
had a
sleep
hallucination.
paralysis.
Yeah.
That's completely
Well,
different. I've had a
obviously.
hallucination with sleep paralysis.
And you were able to tell the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a complete difference. First off, the intense fear. Completely different.
Well, so in regards to what? Like, which was scarier?
The sleep paralysis was absolutely terrifying. Everything
Yeah.
else around me is normal to me.
Right. So, like, for me, sleep paralysis is quite terrifying, even if I don't hallucinate, which I never have, thank God, and I don't want to start. But like for me, it's like it's that feeling of because you're deep in REM sleep and you just become conscious of your body and your surroundings, and you feel like you can't breathe because your body is still in physically in a sleep mode and you just don't breathe as much when you're asleep.
Mm-hmm.
So because you're paralyzed, because your body shuts off, movement, so that way you're not flailing around while you're dreaming, you know, like
And the hallucinations are the dreams.
right. I mean, like, so people that like sleepwalk, are people that like aren't always their brains don't always turn off that movement. So if you wake up in the middle of REM sleep and your body has, that movement, shut off and you become conscious, it is extremely terrifying. I've had it,
And
I want to say at least 8 times.
a lot of these things are due to anxiety
Hmm.
or extreme problems sleeping. These are different things from the topics that we're trying to get to.
Right. So, but like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people attribute sleep paralysis to saying that it was a supernatural experience.
It's it might feel like a supernatural experience to them, but it's too strong of a feeling to be a supernatural experience, nor is it a supernatural experience.
So you're saying that supernatural experiences are more subtle.
Yes.
So in some of the ghost stories that like I've seen like people recount on YouTube, they'll be like, "Oh, checking out haunted blah blah blah," and I got scratches, like on my stomach after saying this to a presence. Like, I'm assuming that would be considered more demonic than a ghost. But what do you think of that? Like, do you think it is possible for like ghosts to physically interact? Because if it's more subtle, like,
Um it can, but not like that. That's more of a demonic to poltergeist type of presence, and you shouldn't be messing around with that. And I'm so sorry that you've gone through that. You should probably cleanse your house.
so okay, um, the blue ghost, because we keep getting off topic. So tell me, I want to know the story.
So I had a prophetic dream with her where I got off of my school bus, walked a certain path into my school, and then she didn't follow me in. Now, blue ghosts are very rare.
Mm-hmm.
Usually you see white ghosts. I don't know what a blue ghost means. I have had several people tell me several different things, um, but it's never been important enough for me to actually sit down and look into it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, past experience, I haven't had it since, and it's not. Ghosts aren't really my super into thing.
Right.
It's just something that's always been a thing in my life that I'm like, it's normal.
Right. Which is, you know, absolutely,
Baffling for you.
it's insane to me.
But I'm like, that's a normal part of life. And you're like, no, it's not.
No, not at all. Like, to me, it's just always like something that I love to hear about because so many people say that they experience it. And I'm like, for me, I want the proof. I want the evidence because so many people say that they experience it. And I want to know, like, how can I quantify that? How can I say like this is a real experience? So like I love when people do like EVPs and spirit box sessions and I try to see like was I able to determine words before, they said anything and like try to determine it for me because like when someone says that something sounds like something, you're like, "Oh, okay, yeah," and now I can't unhear it. So like but like things like that I find so intriguing. Like all
Okay,
the ghost hunting
pause.
stuff.
pause before I get too into this story about the ghost. Um, Ouija boards. People are going to start thinking about those at this point. Do not touch them. Do not.
Yeah.
Don't touch them. I don't care what your reasoning is. I don't care if you think I'm paranoid. I don't care if you believe me or not about any of these experiences. Do not touch a Ouija board.
PSA.
Yeah, PSA, don't touch it. Don't do it. Don't do anything with it. If you do something with it, which I incredibly highly do not support, do not think you should touch, out of all things that you should do, it is not that. But if you have to, for whatever reason, and just can't stay away, make sure you have somebody experienced with you and make sure that you have protection circles around you. That said, don't do it.
So I've used an Ouija board when I was very young.
And I'm going to stab you for it. No, okay. That was when you were very young.
Yeah, yes. No, it actually belonged to my sister, and
yes,
she suckered me into, you know, using it with her. I must have been no more than like, I can't imagine I was more than like 7 years old at the time.
I can't imagine she even knew how to use one.
She didn't. Like, you know, there were loose instructions. It was like a Hasbro, you know, a Ouija board. And I think it had loose instructions. No. And of just like, oh, hold your breath for like 10 seconds and then ask, is anyone there? Which obviously, like, you know, knowing what I've seen now just from like doing, you know, the little bit of research that I've done, because like this stuff does intrigue me. I know that there's so much more to it than that. And like, and they say like, if you do like any misstep, like you could be in serious trouble. Like, you know, spiritually, like you're inviting things in and you don't know what you're inviting. And, but I have to say, like,
I don't want to go too far into it because I don't want people using them.
Right.
But I do want to say the Hasbro ones are absolute bullshit. Don't waste your money.
So
it's better to spend money on something that's a lot more wear and tear and like actually made by somebody who knows what they're doing, rather than Hasbro who's just trying to make money.
Right. And like, so for me personally, like that was basically it. I only had one other Ouija board experience. Maybe we'll get into it another day, but like not to glamorize it, but you know, it does bring up like an interesting question of like,
I feel like we should just try and avoid the topic unless somebody wants us to educate them on it. If somebody leaves a comment or does a Patreon, talks to us in the Discord,
to like go more into like why it's dangerous.
To go more into why it's dangerous, what you can do if you get into a situation like I have a baby witch friend who has one that their father messed around with and then never said goodbye, and now there's a lot of horrific supernatural things going on in their house and has been for their entire life. So that's the fault of not closing a portal to a spirit realm.
Which is essentially what you're doing.
Yes. You're talking to other spirits. You could be talking to a demon, a ghost, anything. You don't know what you're talking to. And that's where it gets a little bit terrifying.
So
you should know what you're doing and have somebody who knows what they're doing.
Do you feel the same way about like EVP sessions, or do those not like open up portals the same way?
EVP sessions?
Like Spirit Box. Have you looked into that stuff?
I have not.
Basically what it is like people using recording devices. So like EVP is like people using like the recording devices saying like you know, is anybody there, et cetera, and like when you play back later on in editing, occasionally they'll say like, oh, I heard a voice but I didn't hear it while I was there, like the recording device picked it up. And then
I never knew what the word was.
Yeah, so
I have heard of these though.
So that's an EVP session. And then the other one, which I find extremely intriguing, is the Spirit Box, where it's basically like a radio that scrolls through channels like extremely fast, like split second channels of like radio signals, and it's completely randomized, and so it just sounds like static. And occasionally, like, so people will ask, you know, questions or like, can you repeat my name back to me? And apparently ghosts will be able to like utilize those radio waves to make semi-coherent, you know, words, short phrases.
It doesn't sound impossible. But I don't think that's anywhere near the same intensity of a Ouija board, and
Okay.
is completely safe.
Okay. So that's good to know.
You're not being invasive with them, and you're not talking to somebody who you don't know necessarily is a ghost or a demon or anything like that. They're not able to sit down and harm you or come through a portal.
It's just basically like giving them something to manipulate if they choose to.
Yes, rather than inviting them into your home.
It is really interesting. Like I have to say, out of all of like the ghost hunting, like uh I don't want to say shows because those are always like super staged, but like out of all of like the things that I have looked into, especially like a lot of YouTubers that go ghost hunting, I find their stuff so intriguing. And like personally, out of all of the evidence that they say that they have, spirit boxes are the ones that like really make me wonder because, they'll just, play it. They'll like start up the spirit box. They'll just be scrolling through, all these channels and until they like ask a question, no words are formed. So, and it doesn't really seem like something that could be manipulated by just any old YouTuber in editing software. And it doesn't really seem like it's something that they would want to do, you know? So, like, I have to say, like, out of all of the evidence that I've ever seen for people trying to ghost hunt, definitely like spirit boxes are the ones where I'm like, okay, but like maybe.
Well, let's go play with Spirit Box. We'll find out.
Oh my goodness. That would be really cool for an episode. Um
I
for
wouldn't
like
be against it as far as I can tell, unless I got a weird feeling off of the Spirit Box. But
right.
I'd have to be in front of a Spirit Box.
Maybe like a Patreon tier would be
Yeah,
like
Patreon tier, if you guys
raising
want us
enough
to.
money to like buy a spirit box and then I'll go visit you.
Yeah.
And we could like, I don't know, I'm sure like some places around like Boston or something.
Salem's probably the better option.
Right. So maybe
Maybe like a graveyard in Salem.
I mean like it would be really cool. I would be scared shitless.
Good.
I'm going to be completely honest. I am a total baby when it comes to this stuff. But
I'm the person that tries to spook you prior to the actual interactive things.
like who knows? Maybe we'll like get a GoPro or something if we can find something cheap that records well. Like obviously it'll be really low production, but like maybe we'll do a
Yeah.
Patreon tier to like raise money for like that for like a Patreon video or
Yeah.
something. I feel like that would be so cool. I really, as terrified as I will be, it is like one of those things where it's like seeing is believing and sometimes you just have to do it yourself. But I can tell you, like I can tell our audience right now, I will never ever ever present evidence that I think is false, or I will never like edit something to make it seem more like evidence, because at the end of the day I want to know just as much as anybody else, and I feel
And
like
I'm here to educate.
right.
So
And I feel like that's like the one thing about like all the genuine YouTubers that are like doing all the ghost hunting and like that I feel are being genuine. I mean, like you can never quite know for sure, but like I feel like personally, like coming from a skeptic's point of view, I want to provide only the strongest evidence.
and as
So
a
yeah.
witch, I want to sit down and educate people, and that's why I'm sitting here with my notes and things,
Hmm.
because I want you guys to know what's safe, what's not safe, what you can and can't do, things like that, and the experiences that I've personally been through, and the things that Emma's going to be skeptic about, and the
Hmm.
things that I can offer up in a little bit of banter back and forth with her to see if we can believe or prove or disprove things that I've been through.
All right,
I'll
so it's
finish up
settled.
the blue ghost thing real quick for you.
Yes. So, but it is settled. Let's totally make a Patreon tier for this. Like, I'll do
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Cool. All right.
So the blue ghost thing. My immediate thought was I've never seen a blue ghost, followed by my prophetic dreams. I almost can never control.
Mm-hmm.
So subconsciously, I actually did follow the exact path that I did in that dream, and recognized it about halfway through walking, and then just went, "Fuck it, we're already here."
Okay, so like just to like back it up to make sure that like I'm following. So basically what you're saying is that you had a dream the night before that you were going to school and you walked or coming back from school and you walked a certain path.
Well, I was walking to
And so you were
school
walking to
off of the
school,
bus.
off from the bus, and you were walking a certain path in this dream.
Yes.
And then you saw the blue ghost in your dream. And then so the following day, in real life, you were walking to school and you wound up taking the same path without realizing it, correct?
Hmm. I only
Okay.
realized about halfway in, like, into the area that I was. So, like, the middle of the road is where I recognized and went, hmm, well, might as well finish it.
Okay, so then from there, what happened?
Well, we'll start from getting off the bus.
Yeah.
I immediately saw her and just kind of went, oh, okay, so she's real. Who
Mm-hmm.
is she? And then I went, you know what, whatever. She wants to follow me, that's up to her. So I took the path. And then I thought, wait, I am taking the proper path, but I didn't stop. I was continuing to walk
Mm-hmm.
as I thought this. And then I was like, well, I can tell she's following me. Why is she following me? Will she enter the building with me?
Were
Or
other
will
people
she.
around when this happened?
Um, Other kids were around, but they had already entered the building. I was the last one to really enter, except there were a couple kids behind me who were just kind of packing up their stuff because they had been chattering.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not
So
like I was the
like,
only one there. They just didn't see anything.
right. So it's broad daylight
Hmm.
and you see this thing and no one else around you. The few people that were around you, no one else could see it as far as you were concerned.
Yeah, no, if they could see anything, they didn't mention it to me. They just
Okay.
acted as normal, so I'm assuming they didn't see anything.
All right. So continue.
That's an assumption. Like, they could have saw something, but they could have
Mm-hmm.
seen something, but, like, they didn't mention it to me. Um, So I continue walking. I take my path. She stops exactly where she had stopped in the dream. I go into school. She's gone by the time I come back out of school. By the time I leave to go home, she's gone. Didn't follow me home. Never saw her again. I asked family and stuff. I was like, why did she follow me? And
Mm-hmm.
their response was, you just have a strong spirit. She probably got attracted to that, but that was as far as it went.
So why do you think that you had
She was
the
very
dream
young,
about it?
too. I don't know. See, I have prophetic dreams, so they tell what will happen in the future. They don't tell me, like, the future. They tell me the future will happen this way. You have no say.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to change it before. It doesn't work.
How
So I
many
gave
prophetic
up.
dreams would you say that you've had?
I can't count.
Like, obviously, it's not a nightly thing.
Yeah, it's not a nightly thing. Although at some points it was a nightly thing and it was terrifying. But that was more in my teenage years. Now
Mm-hmm.
that I'm in my 20s, I don't really get them as often,
I feel
if
like
at
that would
all.
be an interesting episode is to talk more in depth about your prophetic dreams. Because I mean, like, I remember when I was younger and we were talking casually, and you would tell me once in a while that you did have these dreams. At the time, I didn't really know what to think about it. I just let you talk because, I found it interesting. I don't think I ever tried to, like, debunk it. I don't think I felt that we were close enough at the time that I could say something like that. So it would be really interesting to go back into like some of these dreams that you've had.
Well, I mean, at those times we'd probably known each other like what, 4 years.
Yeah, so like I mean like we were good friends, but I didn't feel like I could have like the most blunt conversations.
Now that we're going on 10 to 11 years, it's
Yeah.
like, hey.
So like but like what if you're crazy?
So what if you're crazy? All right, I'll talk to my new therapist about it. See what she has to say.
And like just to reiterate in the last episode like I mentioned like I've talked frankly with you about being concerned for like your general mental health. So as long as you're like willing to continue sharing a little bit, if this stuff does happen to come up in, therapy sessions, I would love to hear what your therapist has to say for sure.
Yeah, and I'm not against sharing these things on podcast. If I am, I just won't mention them. So,
Right. And obviously I'll never force you to talk about something that you don't want to talk about.
how dare you force me into things?
No, I'll just force you to tell me like outside of the podcast.
You wouldn't even do that.
No.
Um, so as for the girl, I'm sure that you want to know what she looked like.
Yeah, please.
You know the stereotypical Asian girls?
Yeah. So like long, straight hair.
She had long, straight black hair.
Okay.
I couldn't tell that it was black, but I could tell that it was black just by looking at her
Mm-hmm.
and her complexion. She looked very young, probably because she was very young. She was, if I had to give her an age, I'd probably give her about 8 or 9.
Oh wow.
So if she died very young.
Dang.
If she died, I
If
say
she
about
did.
a ghost. I don't recall what she was wearing, honestly. I recall her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Those weren't odd. It was just kind of like a casual like look. She didn't look like scared or innocent or anything. She just looked normal,
Normal.
like somebody who might be going to school. She didn't have any bags with her. Um, she's just walking.
So like that, I guess that is another question. So like not like the floating,
Oh no, all these ghosts walk.
Interesting.
Except the mother seemed to be kind of floating, but she was. I don't understand her. She was a weird one. But this one in particular just seemed to walk.
Mm-hmm.
The best way I can describe the walking, quote unquote, is that they kind of have a floaty sort of walk, an ethereal walk.
Interesting. So like
Like you
maybe
would
like a
think that their
little
feet are
slow.
moving, but if you were to really look into it, they're not technically moving.
Like there's no like traction on the ground.
Yeah, no, there is no traction on the ground. I can't
Interesting.
look back and go, oh, look, a footprint. That's no. However, ghosts can interact with you in the sense of they can touch you. What you'll feel is an extremely cold feeling on like one extremity and not like any others.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like when you have an iron deficiency and suddenly you have like, both your hands are really cold.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a single hand is cold, which would
Interesting.
be somebody placing their hand on yours or something.
Has that happened to you?
Yes, several times.
Huh.
For several months at some point.
Do you have an iron deficiency?
Off and on, but at that point, no. Right
Okay.
now, no. But right now, I'm also not around any ghosts. So,
Right.
although I did feel a presence when I came into this home and had to speculate what was wrong with the person who died here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, turns out she was shipped away. This is probably why her spirit's not even here. She was whisked away to a hospital and died of, I believe it was eye cancer.
Oh.
But I kept having this vision of her on the ground in my bedroom area,
Mm-hmm.
just face down. And I was like, why do I feel like somebody fell here? But she was very old, so it's not impossible that at some point she fell there, and my connection just went, hey, somebody fell here. But it didn't freak me out. I just went, that's weird.
So back to this little girl, Blue Ghost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, did you ever consider like looking up like obituaries and things like that to see if like recently a young, Asian girl had passed?
I did not.
That would have
See,
been really interesting
with me, it's so normal that I just don't think to do those things.
to like cross reference, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel okay, like if you do see another ghost, in the coming future.
I'll let you know, and then we
Yeah.
can look up obituaries.
Yeah, like that would be really interesting to see. Like obviously I know you're not perusing obituaries. So like
I'm also not perusing ghosts.
right. So like
I haven't seen one in quite some time.
if you were to see a ghost and then find some kind of matching picture or obituary, I mean that would definitely feel more like proof to me for sure.
Yeah. I can't tell you what age I was when I saw this, because I'll be honest, I don't remember which year of high school this was. Um, but yeah, no, she was like 7, 8, 9, somewhere around there. Very young. Um, just young Asian girl.
Maybe I'll wind up looking into it if I have some spare time.
I've heard a couple things about like blue ghosts being like ones that drowned or something, which
Oh.
wouldn't be odd for here, especially because it was the winter time.
Mm.
and people tend to just stupidly walk out onto the ice and fall.
Do
My
you
dad
feel like
actually
it was
saved somebody's
also?
life
Oh
because
wow.
they stupidly walked out onto the ice thinking that it was thick enough
Do you think it
to
could
go
also
across
like
the
maybe be
lake.
like a frostbite kind of thing?
It could be.
Hmm. Interesting. So yeah, maybe in my spare time, if it is something that I can look up, like we could like try to figure out roughly like what year you saw her and like who knows, maybe there's an obituary for a young girl who maybe she drowned. Who knows?
I mean, it would be the years that I saw her, it would be between the years of 2010 to 2014 because those are the years that I had high school.
And what town were you in? If you don't mind me
Uh,
asking.
oh, what town? What town? I was in.
Like I know you moved around quite a bit.
Well, yeah, but my school was not in my hometown. I want to say Chelmsford.
In what state?
Wow, just outing me now. Massachusetts.
Okay.
So
So
Chelmsford,
yeah.
Massachusetts.
Hey, comment below if you
Live in Chelmsford, Massachusetts.
and you who knows? Like but that is really interesting.
If you want to look up, well, no, I won't give you the exact school on podcast. That would be
Yeah,
bad.
no.
But
Yeah, you can tell me that like afterwards maybe.
you know the area of Chelmsford is where she showed up. Whether or not she was from Chelmsford, I have no idea.
Okay. So, do you have like any other ghost stories that you want to share?
uh, I mean, I've got a couple. Um, I do want to jump back into the empath thing real quick because I do have a couple of extra notes in here.
Yeah, go for it.
Um, so in addition to my mother feeling, she can also see the spirits, and it's like a flip of a switch. Her mood will change.
Mhm.
She loves the older cemeteries because the older spirits have really good stories.
Interesting.
She can converse back and forth with the spirits. I cannot. Um,
I would love to interview your mom at some point.
I'd love to spend time with her. She's supposed to come up to Vermont at some point. I don't know how feasible this is, but she wants to get money to get land in Vermont and start um, up her witch garden and start like really getting into it.
Aw.
And she wants to give me free supplies because they're so expensive.
Right.
And she's like, one day your cabinet will look as nice as mine. And I'm like, I could only dream.
Aw. That's cute.
Um, but because again, I have said in the past of this podcast bit is that it's like walking into a room that has like 1,000 people talking at once. What she does is she tells the others to wait their turn so that she can have a single conversation with just one person
Okay.
instead of having 1,000 people jump on her immediately upon seeing that she can listen and talk to them. Because it's exciting when you haven't
Well,
spoken to
yeah.
anybody in your spirit and you're just like, people.
Right. So like that definitely, follows like cuz obviously like ghosts are human,
Mm-hmm.
And like so it makes sense, logically like why if this, is a thing, like why would people be drawn to, certain people? Like why would ghosts be drawn to people that can speak? And like it obviously like it does follow a logic, you
They're
know?
lonely.
Yeah. So, and then I guess it makes me wonder like because you said like not every person will become a ghost. It always makes me wonder like why exactly, and then obviously then that goes into like afterlife. So I mean like that's something that we could definitely talk about another time because that in itself is a
Afterlife is an interesting topic that I'm not entirely sure I'm qualified to get into, but I can do a little bit more research with my mother and figure out what she thinks.
yeah
And then I can
maybe.
base myself off of what she thinks.
Oh, maybe we'll bring her on to talk about that.
Yeah, if she ever has the time, she usually goes to bed around this time. Like she was just headed to bed, and I was like, Mom, what are these things? Can you explain this a little bit more in detail? How do you feel about this? And like, I did a little interview with her, so.
Hmm. So yeah, I would love to have like a one-on-one with her and like hear some stories for sure.
I have a bridge into the shadow people discussion if you would like to hear about it.
Yeah, let's get into shadow people.
This was a I have a couple of different experiences with shadow people.
So first things first, what do you think is like the main difference between a ghost and a shadow person? Like for
That's in
you
my notes.
personally. Yeah.
A shadow person, they're just that. They're a patch of shadow perceived as a living entity, to my understanding. Often, shadow people are mentioned in negative hauntings, which would be negative experience of being haunted. You know, not all hauntings are negative experiences.
Right.
People can coexist with ghosts and be fine with it.
Mhm.
Myself as an example. But shadow people are demons
Okay.
or people who went insane.
Interesting.
They like to creep in corners of buildings and or houses and scare people. It gives them energy.
Okay.
If you look up on YouTube Dead Files,
Mhm.
um, that is a YouTube run by my mother's um, gay friend's daughter, I want to say.
Mhm.
He does voodoo, and she apparently interacts with a lot of shadow people and ghosts. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't looked her up.
Well, now I
Um,
totally want to look her up.
yeah, so go look up Dead Files on YouTube. Um,
Casual plug.
she's apparently a fantastic research for information on them. Uh, and the best way to be rid of a shadow person is to ignore them, I found,
Mhm.
or I'll address them casually. They hate it.
It's like, "Oh,
Um,
stop.
yeah, I've done that.
Weather today crazy."
I'm like, hey, what's up? Um, or to purify your home.
Right.
They can touch you,
Oh.
but they can't really harm you. They just want to spook you because it gives them the energy that they need to continue being there.
Right. So if you don't give them, that fear energy, then they will eventually leave you alone, is what you're saying.
Yep, they'll just go away.
So basically, you're saying if you see a shadow person, ask them about the weather and how the kids are.
Yeah, if you have the guts to do so, they do instill
Right.
fear upon seeing them. So a good way to get rid of them would to be ignoring them and pretending that you're not afraid or feeling not afraid and getting used to it. However, not a lot of people are able to do that. Because I have
Yeah,
so much
no.
experience, I'm able to do it. If you saw a shadow person, you'd freak the fuck out. So
I I don't know what I would do, honestly.
honestly, I think that you would either try and pretend that it didn't exist, which would count as you not interacting with them and they would go away, or you'd be absolutely terrified and ask me what the hell's going on.
I would probably turn on all the lights.
It wouldn't matter.
Really? So,
it,
like,
yeah, it doesn't matter. They still pop into the corners of your vision if you have lights on.
okay. Tell me about your personal experiences with shadow people.
Well, I thought Vega was one. We won't get into Vega. Um, but I have seen shadow people before in my home, and they spooked me for quite a bit. Again, back in my teenage years, this was, my father's home.
How old were you when you first started seeing them?
I want to say about 16, maybe 15.
Did you know about them, before you started seeing them? Like, was it something that
Not
you.
at all. I had to Google what these things were. I didn't know. And then I had to clarify again with my mother to be like, these are shadow people, right? And what's a shadow person? Just like from your perspective. And she was like, yeah, they're this. And I fucking hate them. And I'm like, yeah, I would too. And I still do. And I haven't interacted with them since then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a good way to cleanse your area of anything, I'm going to just outright give
Yeah.
people that info. You should use black or white salt. Put it in all the doorways or windows, anywhere someone could enter your home, feasibly or otherwise.
Like,
So
just like
an
a little
entranceway to your
pile?
home. More like a
Oh,
line.
okay. Does it have to, like, extend the whole way?
I'm not sure if it has to, but I always make sure it does.
Okay.
Just out of paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, you can burn sage. White sage is good. Dragon's blood. Sandalwood.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
which
will
also.
say real
Hmm?
quick though that I know from what I've seen, I don't know if this is correct, but I'm pretty sure sage is considered cultural appropriation. So I wouldn't recommend sage. Look into that before you buy sage. I'm pretty sure it had something to do with Native Americans. There was a controversy that I heard a lot about, like Native Americans coming out and like saying, I think it was Native Americans, don't hold me to this, but saying like sage came from our culture and like so many people are buying it for, you know, witchcraft and things like that, that it's no longer available.
It could be cultural appropriation, but it's something that witches have been using for eons.
Hmm.
But that is
So
something that I highly recommend as a witch.
I will say that like use your own discretion and do your own research when it comes to sage. That's all I'll mention.
As a witch, I say do your own research anyway
Yeah, fair.
and use things to your discretion. These are just my
Okay.
suggestions. And sage is not the only thing you can use. It's a
Right. So
very
like,
strong thing, but it's not the only thing you can use. If you don't feel right doing that, use dragon's blood
mm-hmm.
or sandalwood, which also cleanses the mind and can help you meditate.
Oh.
Sandalwood's a very good one. Tar washer is also a good one. It's good for long lasting barriers. But this is more one that you just put outside of one of your doors and leave it there because it's sticky.
Oh.
Um, what you do with that is you mix pine sap with water and then you charge it in a full moon.
Mm-hmm.
To charge something in a full moon, I'll explain that you just. This is a ritual of sorts that I intend to do on the blue moon that we'll talk more about at some other point.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Isn't that like just like where you put it in like some kind of clear or open container and like put it in like a moonlit area?
yes, but there's a little bit more to it. You have to put it down. You should put it down anyway, just as the moon rises, and make sure it does not touch sunlight. Preferably
Oh.
any light, if possible. So put it directly in the moonlight, and then get up before the sun rises and
Mm-hmm.
go get it. Because if
Interesting.
the sun touches it, then you have sun water and not moon water.
Huh.
I tend to make my moon water and then bring it in and offer it to my goddess, as she is associated with the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Something else that you should do is, um, well, once you finish with that, the best thing to do would be to put it in front of your, you know, assuming you have a concrete doorstep, put it on that. Because if you put it in your house, it's sticky, it'll attract bugs, you don't want that.
Right.
But for outside, especially with this item, you should spread it like you would the salt.
Mm-hmm. So like in a line.
Yeah, so like in a line. But with inside, you should use white salt or black salt. You should always have those things in your arsenal as a witch,
Mm-hmm.
because they're good for protection. But even as just a person, you can have salt
Right.
because you live in a world where salt exists.
Salt is, yes, everywhere.
Congrats,
and
get
it
some damn salt.
and it obviously doesn't matter like what kind of salt, table salt.
I use just table salt, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
iodized salt.
So, okay, getting back to after, you know, like that very important tangent. So, let's get back to your experiences with shadow people. And I think after that, we'll wrap up.
Yeah, okay, so that's my entire bit of notes. So now we're just going to go off memories and such.
Yeah, go for it.
But we've been going off memories quite a bit anyway. I'm not just reading from a book of notes, I have like cliff notes.
Yeah.
Just, for the audience to know. I just have a horrible memory, so I have to have some cliff notes. So my experiences with shadow people. In my old home back uptown,
Mm-hmm.
it had shadow people in it. And some demonic entities as well that I summoned with a Ouija board. Yay!
And it all comes full circle.
Yeah. The shadow person was terrifying, often stood in the doorway, sometimes would stand by the corners of the room. Any corners. They like corners.
Have you ever like walked through one that was in a doorway?
I would like to never do that in my life, but no.
Like, what if you really had to go to the bathroom?
Hold it, bitch. It's a shadow person. You're scared.
So, like, is it something that you could walk through though? Like, is it Like, how
I
tangible
would
is it?
assume you could, but I've
I mean,
never
like, wouldn't
tried.
that be like the biggest fuck you to a shadow person? Is just like walking straight through it?
I suppose I've walked straight past one before
Mm-hmm.
and tried to just show no fear and was just like, sup.
Are they like human shaped?
They are human shaped, which is why they're called shadow people
Okay.
with very long arms, and they're just solid black.
Lanky,
Lanky shadows
lanky shadows.
that look like people. They're the shape of people, but they're lanky shadows.
Are they, would you say that they're like sentient in that way? Like, or are they just energy?
I am not entirely sure how to answer that one. The only reason they really want to be around is just to fuck with you.
Interesting.
They want to scare you because that's where their energy comes from. That's it. They're annoying.
So they're basically like low level demon.
Yeah, extremely low level demon.
What's like your most vivid memory?
My most vivid memory. I'd say that I have two vivid memories. The first one being the one that I just keep mentioning, where I'm like, I walked past one and was just like, so.
How long was it like around for? Or like, was it just like a quick like sup and then it disappeared because it was like, fuck this?
Well, they kind of show up in the corner of your vision, so once you blink, they usually vanish. Sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it's scary, is when they really don't.
Interesting.
Um, Another one, I was just casually sitting in my bed, saw one near my doorway, but like my door was always shut. So it was kind of in like the corner area, and then it moved to where my television set was. You remember the whole setup of that room?
Vaguely, yeah. That was a while ago.
Yeah, that's the house that it was in.
Damn.
Um, and so I would see that one there as well. I think it was the same one, honestly. Just wouldn't leave me alone. Um, that's the time when I was afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just kind of be like, what the fuck?
Right. And I
What
mean,
the
like,
fuck?
rightfully so. I mean, it sounds.
That's a terrifying thing to see.
Yeah.
And that's not the norm thing for me to see.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, I don't have, I don't currently interact or see any, and I
Right.
haven't since then. So since way back then is the last time I saw a shadow person. I like to keep it that way.
I would love to hear, like, if, like at some point, like if anyone from our audience has had like these experiences as well, like either like, just like general ghost stories, but also like interactions with shadow people. I feel like that would be really cool to like hear
I'm
about.
sure if we get a big enough audience, one of them has interacted with a shadow person at least.
Oh, for sure.
They're not uncommon.
Maybe we'll put out like a separate like email for people to like send in their stories. I would love that.
Hey, at Keith from State Farm.
What?
Ever seen a shadow person? I don't know if State Farm has a Keith or if that Keith would
Why
be
is-
listening. Or
Why State Farm? Where did
I
that
don't know. I
where the-
immediately thought State Farm for some reason.
Is that a ghost telling you about State Farm?
No, it is not. It's
Okay,
my
but
brain
like
going, State Farm.
okay, but like what if a ghost was like whispering State Farm in your ear right now and that ghost's name was Keith?
I'd be a little bit concerned as to why Keith is in my house.
I mean, fair.
Be like, the fuck? Why are you here, bitch?
I'm the ghost of State Farm.
Great. I'm not signing up. Get out.
Damn. Get him next time.
And I just told Keith to get out of my house, so, Flo's a bit salty now.
So, all right. Any other stories you want to add before we wrap up for today?
Nothing that really pops into my head immediately.
So, all right. Well, in that case, I mean, just for a little conclusion. So, I can't say that after this I feel more convinced that ghosts exist, but I feel like it's gonna take quite a bit to convince me. But you would say 100% that ghosts do exist, right?
Yeah. Guys, I think that what we have to do is take Emma to a cemetery. Don't you agree?
Oh God. I mean,
Even the
like,
skeptics, like, come on.
I mean, like
Let me drag
you
my
make
cinnamon roll to a
you
cemetery.
make it
Support us
sound
on
like
Patreon.
you make it sound like I've never been to a cemetery.
At night with something to record at with me?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean,
Now it sounds worse, doesn't it?
at that point, I'm probably going to die. So, um,
Everybody write your obituaries in the comment section below.
say your condolences to my family. I'm not coming out of that alive. See, like, that's the thing, right? Is like, as much of a skeptic as I am, I'm still terrified, you know, of like,
Which is logical.
right. And like,
You don't know what you may or may not be getting into, and that's why you're scared.
right. And like, because I know that there are skeptics where they're like, there is literally nothing to be afraid of. This stuff does not exist. This stuff is stupid. Like, I'll play your little game, and I'll humor you, but like, I'm not scared.
God, if you said that to me, I would have been like, Emma, get the fuck out.
But like, I mean, like, because I know
You're not worth me telling more stories to.
but like, I know people like that, you know.
I know people like that exist and are really like intent on, oh, this is bullshit, but I'll humor you. And I'm like, I wouldn't let you into my world.
I mean, and it is a fascinating world, which is why I would never, disrespect what you claim that you've seen. I would never say that it's inherently wrong or false. And
I don't think that my goddess would appreciate it if you did. Just saying, like, you should keep an open mind with anything.
Right. And like, that's what I honestly, like, if I had to preach one thing, it is open-mindedness.
Everyone keep an open mind no matter what, and have respectful conversations in the comment section, please.
Can't reiterate that enough. But yeah, I will admit that even at the end of this episode, I have to admit I'm still definitely skeptic about ghosts.
Which is valid, and I'm not here to sit down and try and convince you in this episode. I feel like this is one that I need to have you experience for yourself.
I definitely feel like if I'm going to experience it with anyone, it would be you.
Aw, you trust me not to get you killed.
I was going
sweet.
I was going more so for the fact that you seem to attract this, but I'll go with that too.
We should take my mother along as well.
Yeah.
Oh, an extra story just to throw you guys in. Obviously I have multiple, but this one is a cemetery one where I was in New Orleans. It was my first couple days there. My mother brought me to a cemetery, decently famous one, very, very old one, and said to me, go pick out a grave. Just go pick out one that speaks to you. And I looked at it funny, and then I went, okay. And I began kind of focusing energy, walking around, and I probably walked for 25 minutes to 30 minutes, to the point where I'm sure that my family members thought I was fucking lost. And then I stopped at one. It was a very tall, black, kind of monastery-looking one that held maybe 4 people. And the reason I stopped at it was immediately I had a searing pain in my right arm, like all the way up to the shoulder.
Oh.
And it would not go away.
Ow.
And I stopped there. And I stood right there. And I waited for my mother, and her boyfriend at the time was there following me. When they both got there, they were like, is this the one you're choosing? And I was like, yes, this is the one. And they said, this one actually has a lot of meaning to us.
Oh.
And that was kind of interesting. So I'll leave you guys with that one.
Yeah.
When I left the cemetery, my arm hurt for 45 minutes afterwards. I asked my mother about it. She said what happened with that is somebody in the cemetery, maybe even in that monastery specifically, probably hurt or broke their arm. They had some sort of injury prior to death. And I said, makes sense.
How bad was the pain? Was it like the ghost of a pain? Like,
yeah, it's kind of like it was like a ghost of a pain, but it was searing pain.
So like you knew that it was intense, but like it felt like you were feeling it.
I knew it wasn't my own pain.
Right.
Because I'd never had that pain in the past, and I didn't have it when I entered. So I was like, something's off.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, like, this stuff to me is like, it just is. All of these are just like,
That's
moments.
not to
Like,
try and convince you. That's just I'll
yeah,
leave you on that note.
yeah. So, maybe in the future, if you have other ghost stories, we can record them and put that as little extras.
Oh, I have millions.
I think that would be really cool if we recorded those as extras, extra content.
But if I
Um,
keep going, we'll just be here all night.
yeah, no, it's already been very long. So, yeah, I guess that wraps up this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed, all of these lovely stories from Arthur, and I hope that you have a lot to think about and discuss. So, yeah, let us know your thoughts, and that just about does it.
Hope to see you next episode.